What's up, guys? Let's go ahead and knock this one out right now. Game ended about 35-40 minutes ago. Seahawks win, of course, 35-6. Pretty much just went in there and took care of business. It was smooth sailing in the second half. First half, there were some frustration points. We had some drop passes. Kearse dropped a pass. Baldwin dropped a pass. Wilson dropped the easiest touchdown he's ever going to have in his life. And obviously the Dwan Harris fumble in the red zone, which is just awful. But other than a couple of minor breakdowns on the defensive side in that first half, the defense made sure that nothing that happened on the offensive side was going to hurt us too much, and we pretty much took care of business for the rest of the game once the second half started. So to talk about the positives real quick, because there is definitely a bittersweet element to this game. So the positives, obviously, Russell Wilson plays one of the best games of his career, throws 5 touchdowns, no picks, has a quarterback rating above 138, and he is playing not only the best football of his life, not only the best football of any quarterback in Seahawks history, but he's playing some of the best football we've ever seen from any quarterback over these last 4 months. He's had 2 games where he's tossed 5 touchdowns. He's had the 3 touchdown game against San Francisco, and he had the big game against the Vikings last week, obviously. And with the way he's playing right now, it feels like we have the opportunity to beat everybody we play in any circumstance, and you got to feel pretty good about that. It doesn't feel like it matters that much who the rest of the players are. I mean, today, if Luke Wilson doesn't drop the easiest touchdown pass he's ever going to have in his life, he has 6 touchdowns, he has 300 yards, and, we're talking about this as one of the best games any quarterback has had this whole season. And, even with that one drop, it still was one of the best games any quarterback's had this year. And we've seen him undergo a tremendous transformation from being a second tier quarterback, and now he's putting his name among the first tier. He's throwing brilliantly from the pocket, and he's throwing great on the run. He's using his legs very well, and right now there's nothing bad you can say about him. His last month, he's been almost perfect. And I've been hard on Wilson a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit, especially after the Arizona game where I thought he really just stunk up the field. And ever since then, he's come back and he's been lights out. He's obviously helped by the offensive line, which I thought played maybe their best game of the season so far today. Not necessarily an easy task. This Ravens team, they've still got Elvis Dumervil. They've still got Courtney Upshaw. They've still got some players on that defense. And today, the pocket held up really well. Wilson did not get sacked once. And in the running game, there were some holes. And we saw early in the game, Thomas Rawls took full advantage of every carry he got. Unfortunately, that didn't last. And once Rawls got hurt, and I'll talk more about that later, and had to leave, Dwan Harris showed us how good Thomas Rawls is by playing a really bad game. I see nothing from this Dwan Harris guy, and as of right now, he is the starting running back on this Seahawks team, and that can't stand. The fact that Dwan Harris was the best we could do out of the free agency pool when we needed a running back after Lynch got hurt, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. At this point, I'm almost like, can we go get Christine Michael back, please? I know he's on the Redskins practice squad, but we got to do something about that, because that guy, he gives me nothing. He's not a good blocker. He's not a good catcher. He's not a good runner. He gives me nothing. And that's going to be a problem going forward. So, great game from the offense. Tyler Lockett had probably his best game on offense of the season. Long touchdown catch on the first drive of the game. Doug Baldwin continues to light the world on fire these last few weeks. I benched Doug Baldwin in fantasy, and I might lose now because of it. And I'm in the playoffs. I just didn't believe that Doug Baldwin could have another huge game after having 2 huge games in a row, and he's just in the zone right now. And he's playing the best wide receiver football we've seen in Seattle since probably at least Corin Robinson that one year where before he started, acting like an idiot. Maybe even Joey Galloway. And I didn't think Doug Baldwin had it in him. I thought he was a passable number one wide receiver in the NFL and not much more. And he's showing a lot more than that. So Jermaine Kearse bounces back from doing nothing last week. He had a good game today, 7 catches. I am firmly in the camp that Jermaine Kearse will not be here next year. So, I'm just hoping for good things from Kearse for the rest of the season. And I hope he gets that free agency money because, he's a guy who grew up right near where I grew up. He went to high school 2 minutes from where I live. And I want to see him get those free agency dollars, even if they're not here. So, yeah, offense, almost everything was great. Obviously, we ran into a big problem when Thomas Rawls broke his ankle. He's out for the season, which get into that in a second. And DeJuan Harris went in there, and he can't give you anything. And Fred Jackson is not a... You can't hand the ball off to Fred Jackson and ask him to go do stuff. He does his damage out of the backfield as a receiver. And that's what you have to use him as. You can't give him the ball out of the backfield. It just doesn't work. So we'll talk more about that in a minute here because just talking about this one game, solid offensively. And defensively, there were a couple of breakdowns. Secondary got lost a couple times. Deshaun Sneed got beat on 2 consecutive plays before the end of the first half. Jimmy Clausen actually passed for more than 200 yards for the first time in his career, so maybe we should feel bad about that. But Ravens' offensive line held up pretty well. We got some okay pressure on Clausen, but one thing that I continue to see with this team that concerns me is that we have to blitz to get pressure on the quarterback against good offensive lines. Like, that's what happened to us against Arizona. That's what happened to us today. Especially with Jordan Hill and DeMarcus Dobbs out, obviously that doesn't help. But today, one thing I noticed was sometimes we struggled to get pressure with just our front four. And that's going to be a problem because when you blitz, you leave yourself vulnerable. And I don't want to see this team feeling like they have to blitz in order to get things done when they get into the playoffs. Defensively, run defense was absolutely incredible. Everybody, A+. Shut down the Baltimore running game. They got nothing on us until the game was essentially over. I think they had a 17-yard rush late in the game when the game was already over. A couple of long pass plays to the tight end and to Aiken. But other than that, shut him down. Michael Bennett had another incredible game. And, it's not something that's totally represented in the stats, but Michael Bennett continues to play like an all-pro, and I don't know if he's going to make the team this year because you've got guys like J.J. Watt, but he is up there, and he deserves to at least make the Pro Bowl. So, that's pretty much the story of this game. The Ravens, they have not been blown out before today. I mean, the whole season they had played close games. This was their first blowout. Obviously, this was also their first game with Jimmy Clausen, so take it with a grain of salt, but the team played some of their best football today, especially on the offensive line. Now we get into the bitter part of all this where, the game went really well. Unfortunately, we got Thomas Rawls now out for the season. It's like you go into your backyard and you're digging around trying to plant a garden and you find a gold mine. But then you find out the gold mine doesn't really have very much more than a couple of bricks of gold in it. And we've been riding Thomas Rawls for a good portion of this season now, and he's been killing it for us. He's been playing amazing. His yards per carry average is like 5.7, which leads the league pretty easily. And now, shut it down for the rest of the year and hope he comes back next year 100%. Tough life. And now things are really going to get tested. Because for one, now you've got DeJuan Harris, who, like I said, he just doesn't cut it. I almost would want to get Christine Michael back over having DeJuan Harris back there, and I don't like Christine Michael. And now when you got to go out, we got to find a guy. And you can find running backs. You can find capable, competent running backs in free agency. Back to start the season, Dion Lewis was a free agent. The Patriots picked him up, and they rode him for about a month, and he produced great for them. And then he got hurt. But the point is, you can get a running back, and that's what this team has to do now. We got to go get somebody. And we got to get somebody who can play because the guys we have right now, even no matter what you think of how Wilson has played over the last month, and he's obviously been playing nearly perfect, You got to have that running back. It's going to be a different story when we have to go into the playoffs. And we don't know for sure if Lynch is going to be back this year. We think he's going to be back, but we don't know. So that's a big concern for me right now because today we didn't need the running game. The passing game was working so well, and the Ravens have so many holes on their defensive backfield that running the ball not that big a deal. Other games we play, it's going to be a big deal, and you got to go get somebody. I don't know who it is. Obviously, you can't trade for anybody at this point, but got to get somebody who can produce. And beyond that, Cam Chancellor bruised his tailbone. Probably not a huge deal. He might play next week. He might not. Either way, I'm going to say that's not that big a deal. As long as he's back for the playoffs, all's good by me. And then Burley, Shed, and Bennett all sustained minor injuries in the later portions of the game. And it all looks pretty minor. But we paid for this one. We won this game. We won it big. We looked great, but we paid for it. And right now, I just feel a little melancholy because not only do I feel for Thomas Rawls, who is having such a good season, but we were counting on him. We were counting on being able to ride the Thomas Rawls engine through the whole playoffs. And now we just have to cross our fingers for Marshawn Lynch to get back by about week 16 or 17 and that he can give us one last ride. That's how it goes sometimes in the NFL. All right. I'm going to go watch these late games, and if you guys have a particular feeling about where the season's going to go now that we're so thin at running back, at least we got them. At least we got Cleveland next week, so we got some time to figure it out. But got to be good. See you later.